Today on r/IDontWorkHereLady. Just let me sleep. So this happened a few weeks ago. After a whole day of work and an excruciating workout session, my partner took me to a big hardware store to get a few things he needed. I was soon bored of wandering around the aisles because for him it was basically Wonderland, but I was practically dead on my feet. So I did what any sane person would do and went to the only camping chair on display and sat down on it to wait for him. Only problem? The chair was at the front of the store, right in front of the entry doors and the customer service station. Immediately, a person waiting at the customer service station looks at me, irate, and asks, "Is there no one here?" Looking around, I don't spot any employees, so I smile and say I guess not. But someone will be here soon. He continues glaring at me and says, "Well, now would be a good time." I shrug and then close my eyes, not realizing that he meant I should go help him, because why would I? A minute later I hear that chair sure looks comfy. I open my eyes to find a man in his 60s smiling down at me. So I smile and say, "Yeah, it sure is, and it's also on discount." The man nods and goes on his merry way. At this point another guy comes in and asks me where can I find XYZ. I shrug my shoulders and say not sure in the span of next 20 minutes, which feels like an eternity when I'm just trying to doze off. I am disturbed by an array of customers asking different questions or just nodding at me. Obviously by the fifth or sixth one, I realize that everyone thinks I work there. Growing more irritated by the second, I'm contemplating risking hypothermia from the pouring rain or suffocation in my car while I sleep, when I see the kind old guy about to leave. As he passes me, he nods again and I smile and remark, "I guess this chair wasn't such a good idea, everyone thinks I work here." The old man goes, "Oh dear, I also thought you worked here, but not because of the chair." That was actually rather odd, seeing an employee sitting on a camping chair the whole time. "It's just, your clothes," nodding towards me. So I look down and realize that my dumb behind has been sitting in front of the entrance wearing the exact same shade of the two colors of the whole store, specifically their logo and employee uniforms. I have not been back there since that day. For our next story, entitled Karen. I was at my friend's birthday party at a trampoline park on Saturday. We were chilling all together with the boys until me and two other friends broke off to go play VR. This park had VR for the platinum ticket, and so I wanted to try it. Midway through the VR game, the other three friends show up, including birthday friend, and we talk about playing hide and seek. So we finish the game and chill next to the VR stand talking about it. There's a kid there talking about how he wants to go first. I think referring to VR, so I say, "We're not playing, you can go," which is when he walks away. We keep chilling until the mom comes over with the kid and says he would like to do this because we paid for it, referring to VR. And it wasn't an outside voice, it was just a rude and fast tone. My friend, that's his birthday, pointed to a sign that said, "Please wait for staff for VR." He repeated what the sign said, and then she asked him, "Do you work here?" Now let's do a quick cutoff. All staff at this place has the following: a lime green Urban Air shirt, with a walkie-talkie in their pocket. He was wearing all black. He proceeded to say no, and she said with a whopping Karen tone, "You should have said that from the start." And walks away speed walking, carrying her son by his forearm with the stupid mom grip. Is it really wrong for us to flip her off while she was walking away, lol? Let's dive into our next story. Am I wearing a bright orange apron I didn't notice? This was quite a few years ago when I was just out of college. One evening I was heading home from my crappy office job and needed to stop at Home Depot to pick up some screws or something. I was wearing typical office worker attire, polo shirt, khakis, brown shoes. Certainly nothing fancy. As I'm standing in the hardware aisle looking over the products for what I needed, some lady walks up to me and says, "Excuse me, where can I find some superglue?" I try to be helpful and say, I don't know. I think maybe the paint department?" She says something to the effect of, "What do you mean you don't know? Don't you work here?" Now I did happen to work at a different Home Depot as a cashier a few years earlier, but even then I had trouble remembering what department had exactly what products in them. That said, being a former employee, I was familiar with Home Depot's employee guidelines, specifically the fact that every employee is required to be wearing an apron when in the stores. This was true all the way up to the CEO. I reply back, no, all Home Depot employees wear bright orange aprons, it's kind of their whole brand identity." She just kind of stared back at me and said something like, "Oh, I thought you were a manager." I just said nope and walked away. On to the next story. Wrong color, sweetheart. I used to work at a Joann Fabrics several years ago, and at the time our uniform partly included a dark green polo with the company name on it and a dark green apron. So one day after work I stopped at Publix to pick up a few groceries, and for those who aren't familiar with the store, Publix employees wear a bright, almost neon green polo. I'm standing there trying to decide between a few options of something when this woman walks up to me. When I failed to acknowledge her right away, she cleared her throat loudly. Thinking she may need to pass or get something I was in the way off, I moved a few steps down the aisle to give her room. Then she demands I tell her where something was. It'd been so long I couldn't begin to say what. Trying to be friendly and helpful, I told her where I thought it was, but that I wasn't 100% sure. She gives me this flabbergasted look and demands I find out for certain where it was. Getting to the end of my helpfulness very quickly, I told her no, she can find it herself, and started to walk away. Maybe 10 minutes later, I'm on another aisle, and she turns down it and gives me a nasty look. Before she could give me any more grief, one of the store managers turned into the aisle. She zeroed in on him like a hawk on a mouse. This woman decided to detain this poor manager, rambling on and on about how I'd been rude, refused to help her, and that I'd been on my phone instead of working. The manager looked at me before confirming I was who she was talking about. He then made it abundantly clear to her that A, I did not work there, and B, that his employees wear bright green, and clearly I was not wearing the correct color. She stormed off, muttering about how everyone in the store was lying to her and being useless and unhelpful. I hope she had the day she deserved. Let's dive into our next story. Ruth's Chris. Oh, I have a story for this subreddit. I was going to Book of Mormon with my ex-boyfriend and my now husband and BF, and I was wearing a cute skirt and top for the show because it's freaking Broadway, even if it's silly Broadway. Seattle, not NYC, so mainly just a play. But still Broadway, so looking decent in public. I ordered myself a baked potato to go pick up from the Ruth's Chris next to the theater to munch on before the show started, since we got there early to find good parking. While I was standing in the lobby of the restaurant waiting for them to bring me out my potato, this older lady with a group of her friends come in behind me. She looks around for a hostess, zeroes in on me, and marches up to me. "Excuse me, why aren't we seated yet? I have a reservation." I was like, what? I have a reservation. Lady, I don't work here, I'm going to the show next door. The hostess then appeared with my baked potato. Mind you, she had been gone for about 4 minutes at this point to see this lady like in my space yelling about her reservation. It finally registered with the lady that just because I was in a black skirt and white blouse, it doesn't automatically make me waitstaff, and she gets super embarrassed and scuttles back to her friends. I got my potato and left and told my people what happened, and we all had a good laugh at her. And I hope she's still embarrassed. For our next story. Wearing an apron doesn't mean I work here. Used to work at a fast food place located in a mall, which meant we could leave during our breaks and stroll about as long as we made it back before our shift started again. I usually stayed in the back room of my workplace during breaks, but in this particular instance I needed to buy some groceries. The grocery store was basically our neighbor, so I didn't bother taking a jacket to cover my uniform. My uniform consisted of a very green t-shirt with a large logo in front, a dark green apron, black trousers, and a green visor cap, also with the logo, all which I wore at the day this happened. The supermarket, on the other hand, had dark blue t-shirts with their own logo, dark pants, and work gloves. I made my way over there and started looking for the things I needed. From a shelf over, I hear someone saying, "Excuse me," but ignore it since I am dressed like a lime. And in the wrong store. I keep searching, rounding a corner because I couldn't find what I was looking for, when the same woman again, now visibly and audibly annoyed, follows me and indignantly says, "Hello," to me, who stops dead in my tracks and look at her, finally realizing that she was speaking to me. I turn towards her and she asks me where to find some item. Caught off guard, I reply, "Don't know. I don't work here. Maybe you should ask an employee." I then pointed to the logo on my shirt, clearly not the grocery store's. I could see the embarrassment in her eyes. Jokingly, I asked her if she thought I worked there because I was wearing an apron. She laughed awkwardly and hurried away. This almost happened twice more before I made my way back to work. One older lady who stood in line to get help from me and left when she overheard the aforementioned exchange, and an older man who loudly asked his daughter if he should ask me for help. She luckily told him that, no, she doesn't work here. He then declared, "What? But she's wearing an apron," and I almost started laughing out loud. Apparently, it's hard to distinguish green from blue. I will end this with a fun twist. A year later, I now work at that type of grocery store. Our last story for today. Nearly got a job from this. Maybe not the subreddit this story belongs in, but still a story I like telling when I can. Context. This was about 10 or 12 years ago, and I was still fairly inexperienced for jobs, had only graduated less than a year before. My family and I were living in California at the time, and my dad and I were fairly regular customers to our local Men's Warehouse. Dad needed suits after retiring from military service, and I needed tuxedos more than once. Had good relations with the associates at the store, so when I started looking for first jobs, they happily told me to apply there. Made my application and got an interview date later on that month. Since I'm interviewing for a clothier position, I get dressed in a modest suit, collared shirt, slacks, tie, and jacket. For the occasion and I made sure to arrive a bit early. Manager Mike sees me and knows I'm there to interview with him, but he's busy with some customers. Give me about 5 or 10 minutes and we'll do the interview on the patio. Not a problem, I don't mind waiting a bit to calm myself down. As I'm waiting, again, dressed in a suit at Men's Warehouse, this nice elderly gentleman walks in and we make eye contact. I give him a polite nod and hello and he comes over to me. I'm here to pick up a pair of pants I was having altered, and he hands me the tailor ticket, just a paper receipt the store uses with name, item, alterations being done, and a pickup date. I look at it, having no idea how to get his pants from the tailor's, but I luckily BS my way through. Okay, give me just a few minutes and I'll get this to someone who can help me out for you. Managed to get another associate who could get the guy his pants from the tailor's in the back, and the guy proceeded to have a good day as far as I know. Not long afterwards Mike comes back and has already heard about what happened. Good on you for helping out, so let's go ahead and start the interview. Did get the job in the end, thanks to already established relations with the employees. But it's still a funny tale to tell, as people then typically say how they would have just said, "You're hired," immediately after hearing about it. Don't know if Mike would actually have been able to say that at the time. And those are all the stories we have for today. See you tomorrow.